Hello and welcome back to another video. Today here again on Forza Horizon 5 to take a look at another brand new addition to this game, which is this LOTUS ESPRIT Turbo. To get hold of this new addition to the game, all you have to do is complete 20 points in the winter season of the festival playlist, which as you can see I've done by doing the trial, the event lab, the photo challenge, and the 4 monthly rivals at the beginning of the series. This 1980 LOTUS ESPRIT Turbo produces just 205 horses, substantially less than the 350 that the much later V8 model produces. That though is 22 years newer than this car. Being Lotuses though, they are both pretty light, each weighing in at just over 1200 kilos. This much older model has an overall PI rating of just 538, which puts it all the way down in C-Class from standard, and you can of course feel that it is a lot slower than that newer machine. There is though something cooler about this sharper edged, much more retro Esprit shape I think, which of course fits this update's retro theme perfectly. This probably is actually my favourite car in this series, although it has been a great selection this time around. There are two manufacturer paint options. There's this red, which you win the vehicle in, and there's also this white, which retains that silver and red stripe and that iconic Essex livery. It's a shame though that if we paint it in another colour, if I just show you here, we lose the red bits from that kind of Essex stripe on the side, because I really wanted to do it in the sort of classic blue with red and silver side. So it's kind of a shame that we lose part of the livery if we paint it in a different colour. But yeah, for now I think I'm going to go for the white, so that we do have that red and silver livery on the side of the car. Over in the upgrade shop, there are a few engine swap options. Most of them are inline 6s and inline 4s. There is, however, a 5.2 litre V8 in amongst those options, and there is, of course, your usual all-wheel drive swap. Then over in aero and appearance, there is these, which I'll skip over quickly, because they are absolutely hideous. There's your usual tyres and rims options, so you can change your compounds and tyre widths, as well as your track widths, which will make it look slightly better, particularly at the back. Look how much track width that adds. Then you have your usual clutch, transmission and driveline options, as well as your differentials. Your usual platform and handling options, brakes, suspension, anti-roll bars, weight reduction, and roll cage. If you take full weight reduction out of the car, it's at just over 1,000 kilos, making it even lighter than it already was. And then there's your usual kind of engine upgrades. As the Esprit Turbo starts in C-Class, I went in search of a B-Class purist tune, equipping this one from K1Z Bard, which brings power up to just over the 350 of that much newer Esprit, with weight down to just over 1,000 kilos, street tyres, but stock suspension. I then headed into some B-Class open racing, joining for the final race of an adventure at the Vulcan Sprint. I was surprised to find quite so many people racing in this one, with a nearly full lobby to kick things off. Here though, after gaining a few places before the unghosting, I had a pretty uneventful race, eventually finishing in a respectable 3rd place. That was the end of that adventure though, so I headed into another set of 3 races. There were rather fewer participants in this next one though, as we kicked things off at the Bola Ocho circuit. Off the line I was left in the other car's dust, so I had to try and work my way back through the field a bit, being slightly killed by another Esprit that was seemingly out of control. Incredibly unusually though, for random players in open racing, they actually apologised for the incident. I was then left battling a well-known sushi delivery car, eventually winning out that one, finishing 2nd overall out of the 3 people remaining in the race. The second race of the adventure took us to the Copper Canyon Sprint, where again the Lotus was slow off the line compared to the other cars. After overtaking a few people during ghosting and the sushi delivery car being killed in the corner of death, I found myself in 2nd place again, where after another rather boring race, driven all by myself, I finished in that same position. And finally we were off to the Emerald Circuit, with a better filled grid than in the previous 2 races. Somehow this time I got a much better launch than in the previous 2 as well, not falling further back than 3rd place. I then spent the rest of the race following a BMW M3, which I was clearly faster than, but not by very much, certainly not by enough to actually get past, unless I had completely sent it, which maybe I should have done up one of the corners, but I didn't really want to kill the car in front. So after 3 slightly frustrating laps behind the BMW, I finished in 3rd place. The Lotus then had managed 4 podiums in 4 races, 2 3rd places and 2 2nd places, which doesn't sound too bad. Most of the races though were with a fairly empty lobby and not against the toughest of competition, so although they were all pretty decent results, I didn't feel like this Esprit is particularly fast. To me at least, it felt slower than a lot of my B-Class cars whilst I was driving it, so I'm not sure I'm going to keep the tune on this or use it in B-Class particularly in future, but I did have some fun racing it, it wasn't too bad. And that is going to do it for a very first look at the Lotus Esprit Turbo here on Forza Horizon 5. Stock, it does kind of show its age, it is quite slow, but it is still an incredibly cool addition, and I think it is, even after driving it, my favourite of the cars that have arrived in this series. With some upgrades, it's some good fun in online racing, but I don't think it's particularly competitive, at least from my experience of it so far, so I probably will end up putting it back to stock or maybe putting some mild upgrades on it just to enjoy it a bit more than its original 80s stock configuration. As ever though, do let me know your thoughts on this brand new addition to the game, but for today's video that is going to be all, so thank you very much for watching, and I will be back with the next one very soon.